You want me to sit on your lap?
Vess! Unshackle him.
I mean, if there's one aspect of Witcher 2, Assassins of Kings, it's an RPG, which is role-playing game for those that aren't initiated to that. And if there's one thing it actually does well, it's the fact that it's not afraid to punish you when you make a mistake. And look at this fact, far more than the stellar graphics. I mean, it's got absolutely amazing graphics, all the script, all the depth. I mean, anything that you can name, it's built on around. This is what actually defines The Witcher 2. And that by itself, that's not a bad feature.
Am I right, Master Geralt?
It's not one of these old school kind of games that, you know, just ridiculously punishes you for every mistake that you make.
Enough!
But it's represent a more sort of progressive aspect to gaming now, that we can come back to punishing people for not doing well but not making it unenjoyable. I mean, that's a really strange aspect to the game, but it does it exceedingly well. Now, the way that it represents this is that it asks the player to work out how to solve the problems for themselves. It doesn't give you clues, it doesn't hold you by the hand, it lets you get on with the game, lets you play the game, lets you just work out what you need to do. And this is kind of like emphasized by, kind of obvious actually, when you come to the start of the game, when you start the very beginning of the game. You're right in the middle of a rebellion with Geralt, who's the main character and who is a witcher, and King Foltest, and you gain the king's favour by some of your actions as some of the forces of the opposition close in. But in relation to that tutorial session, the actual tutorial session, it's a tutorial session. It says this is a tutorial session, but it doesn't actually give you any sort of guidance about how to go about it. It says just get on with it. This is the tutorial session, so off you go. And that in itself is I like that. It's like you're playing it and you're thinking, where is all the guidance? Where's all this holding by the hand that I'm used to over the past 5 years? And it's not there. And I love that. I love that part of it. It's telling you, you got a brain, you can work it out, so work it out. And I encourage you to do that, and I absolutely love that. And this is the truth throughout the whole game. And it's great for players that want to get the most out of the game, because it doesn't hold you by the hand. It encourages you to explore, it encourages you to ask different players, different characters, NPCs, go into various houses, collect certain things, and so on and so forth. A good example, for example, is there's a mission where Geralt is asked to rid a forest of neckers. This is one of the first sort of open towns that you come to. You need to visit a local bookseller and learn more about the animals before you can sort of like work out what you need to do to resolve this mission. And there's hardly any guidance whatsoever. But you can kind of work if you're really if you really take on the aspects of this world and you really feel involved in it, you can kind of work out about the tone of of Geralt's character, the environment that you're in, the interaction you have with the other characters. You can work out what kind of methods you need to use to resolve it, and that in itself is absolutely fantastic. Now, CG Projekt, who are the makers of the game, what they've done, they've changed from the original Witcher game in relation to the Witcher 2 game by simplifying the combat system. And what they've done, instead of in the original Witcher, where you have to kind of click the buttons in a specific kind of rhythm to build combos, now in The Witcher 2, you have silver swords and like a general sword, one to kill the monsters and the other one to kill general foes. And it's more sort of like a hack and slash manner in the way that you play. You've got sort of like a normal swing, and then you've got a hard swing. That's the mouse 1 and mouse 2 buttons respectively. However, let's get away from that, because when you hear that, you're gonna think, oh, the controls have been simplified, they've been consoleized. That hasn't been the case at all. You still have a lot of complexities in battles. There's a lot of things that are going on, a hell of a lot of things that are going on. And one of the things that you find often is that when you've got your magical attacks, you have to judge the distance where they're applicable. So your fire attack, for example, is only going to strike a foe if they're a certain distance away. And there's a lot of different aspects to think about: rolling, attacking, strong attacks, and so forth. Obviously, the strong attacks take more time to build up. And also blocking again. Just because it's simple and it's straightforward and it's easily accessible, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy, and it's not easy. Again, this is harking back to what I said originally, that it's unforgiving. Now, one of the other aspects is that when you're about to go into a battle, because of all of these things, you're thinking about the foe that you're fighting, you're thinking about what spells and what potions that you have available, what weapons you have available, what protection you have available, how much stamina you have to plan ahead. And yep, throwing knives and spells, they do add a further level of protection, but you have to be careful that you don't run out of stamina. Now, while all of these things are put together absolutely well, the interface is perfection. When it comes to searching enemy corpses, for example, that can be really tiresome. Even when you're using Durup's detection amulet to try and highlight them in the undergrowth, and the pop-up box where you can select all, you can select some things that have been dropped, it's tiny, you know. And another little downside, I would say, is that there are some quick time events. I don't really like quick time events. They simplify things. And again, the button indications, when they pop up, they're hard to spot, especially when they come up suddenly. You don't even realize that you're going to come into a quick time event. It just suddenly comes up. Press A, press W, press S, you know. And that kind of seems a little bit weird, especially that the game otherwise is really, really good. The gameplay is really, really good. Now, because of that, these are minor aspects, and I don't really want to quibble, but I have to point them out. The Witcher 2, as a game in itself, it overcomes all of these flaws. It overcomes all of these flaws. Absolutely. And the end product is immense. You could start Witcher 2 having not played the first Witcher game, and you could play it just, you know, with as a swordsman, just not really playing, not really throwing any spells, or throwing a couple of spells, not really making up anything, any potions and so forth. You could actually play it like that if you wanted to. That would be a massive waste, but you could actually play it like that if you chose to do so. But you can get so much more from the game by accessing and in exploring some of the other aspects that the game, and what I would say is that this game is going to be a hard one to beat. The experience in itself, the total experience that it brings to the table is going to be really, really difficult for any other RPG to beat in the near future. Set a template, and you've really got to give it
I didn't know your
a lot
son,
of points for that.
but I know he saw the Empire as a foe, as did King Foltest.
Let's get on to the graphics. This is a PC exclusive at the moment. There's a launcher which allows you to tweak every aspect of the graphics. That includes anti-aliasing, bloom, blur, everything that you can think of is there to tweak for your particular system. Now when you're playing at max, and this particular gameplay that I'm playing, I believe it is at ultra spec, so you're seeing what it looks like now. No, you're not seeing what it looks like now, ultra spec. There's too much blur, I don't like blur. But you're seeing at high spec what the gameplay looks like. It looks good. I mean, it's not Crysis, it's not Crysis 2, it's an RPG, but for what it does, it's definitely the most attractive RPG on the market, perhaps with the exception of Mass Effect. But Mass Effect does things differently. It's pretty much a corridor shooter, a corridor RPG. Here, as you can see, just looking at the graphics, you can see that there's a lot of field of view. These are open vistas. When you're playing this game, you can really sense the scale of this RPG, and you can appreciate the effort, obviously, that the creators of the game put into it. There's so much effort, it's unreal. And you got to give them the respect for that. It's an enjoyable game to look at. There's definitely eye candy, and if you're one of these graphic whores like me, to a certain extent, I've got a high-end PC. I like to tweak it to get the best that I can get, and I can play it at max. I'm playing at max at around about 50 FPS, frames per second. And that's at ultra spec. Most people, I believe, will get it around about 30, but it's an RPG, it's not an FPS. You don't need high FPS. It's perfectly playable as it is. So I'm going to leave it like that. That's my review. It's another SD review for you. I'll be bringing more in the future in this new format, and I hope to get some more subscribers, and I will see you soon.
Those he loved were forced to forge friendships.